Okay, here the if you actually have the social boss fight with David Sarif, I think it's one of my favorite one with Wayne Ass. Not for the same reasons. I mean, with Wayne Ass, there's a big story, history between the two characters and stuff, but also it was the fact that it was super well animated, etc. With David Sarif, it's not on the same level of quality in terms of the technicality, but in terms of the experience, what I liked about it is that you have to go and face your boss, and depending on how you played this out, he's going to say, "I'm your boss, shut up and do your
Yeah.
job," or like he's going to open to you and eventually reveal this side quest that you.
He was a very fun character to write, and the whole point of this was to kind of show that duplicity in his character, how he's a caring, charismatic guy, but at the same time he's got secrets and he's very sly and he can slip right out of your grasp. And we had this whole process for building these things, and the first would be to write it, and then we would test it with the team.
Yeah.
We had a little version, and I
It was
remember
playable in an Excel sheet.
it was
actually.
playable in an Excel sheet, and I remember sending it out to the team, and I remember people giving us their feedback to let us know, and I remember someone writing back saying, "Am I supposed to want to punch him in the teeth when I'm done with this?" And that was when we kind of knew that we were being successful with this, where you can
Right.
get so frustrated with this guy, and yet
I mean, he's
also
your boss.
He's your boss, and
That's
how do you
it.
stand up to your boss? It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And if you win, you get the side quest to find
To
out
explore
more
your
about
past.
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to go back to your office and read emails to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
So there's
yeah,
all
yeah.
these things on top of it
That needs to
that
be
need to
achieved.
happen.
Get back to me if you find something.
You meant when?
Pretty sure I did.
So the Taggart dialogue, where we wanted you to meet Taggart for the first time, was yet another one of our challenges, because we wanted to put it on the critical path and make sure that you would be forced to meet Taggart for this conversation. And originally we had planned that it would be down in the cafeteria pretty much right when you walked into Seraph from the heliport. But it had to get moved, and it had to be put into Athena's office.
Yeah, because with the cafeteria, you can come from different angles, and we weren't sure if you would be stumbling into him. So there were some complications associated to that, and also back in the day. When that decision was made, we were still supporting the chaos in Serif Industries. You could pull out your gun and everything, and we made the decision to put him on a choke point at the end of the elevator to get to Serif's office, because anyway you had an objective to get there. So as soon as the doors open, then you start the conversation with
him.
Tiger.
And we also originally we wrote the conversation when we were told that our dialogue system could support 3 characters. They could support the player, or the Jensen character, Taggart, and another character. So we'd actually written, because we wanted this conversation to not just introduce Taggart, but to introduce
Isaiah
Sandoval.
Yeah.
And so it was written and recorded so that would happen. And unfortunately, then we ended up discovering that our conversation system could only, for some reason, support 2 characters. So we had to kind of hack into the whole system, which is why we ended up separating Taggart and Sandoval, and why the 2 bodyguards who are there to protect Taggart are actually standing around Sandoval instead, and why Sandoval is kind of yelling from across the room his lines. Sir, we have to hurry. So, but in the end, we were still able to maintain most of the integrity of that dialogue, and really present Taggart as a very memorable person.
Here, this is for you. It's a corporate passport encoded with your biometrics. I've set up a false flag routing which should get you to Henshaw Island without any problems.
You're sending me to China? What about FEMA?
FEMA's got nothing to do with this, trust me. We'll have better luck in China.
How can you say that? I saw the bastard who killed Megan pulling his men out of that facility. I left one of those men dead in its underground storage bay.
I know that, Adam. Frank was monitoring the whole thing. So I also know that before he died, that man gave you an address in China. I want you to check it out.
That doesn't make any sense.
Look, Adam. There's a reason this company's under attack. You think it has to do with the typhoon or with some other top-secret military project that I haven't told you about?
The thought had crossed my mind.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. The work Megan's team was doing before they were killed, it was redefining what it means to be human. This company, Seraph Industries, was about to lead mankind to its next stage in human development. Self-controlled evolution. Can't you see how scary that can be to some people?
Sure. I also see how lucrative it can be for some others.
It's never been about money for me, Adam. But you're right. There are people out there who don't exactly feel the same.
Like who?
I'm hoping you'll be able to find that answer for us in China. So get going. Farida's prepping the chopper.
So by now, depending on how much time you spend in the Serif offices, David Serif contact you a couple of times to tell you to go to the manufacturing plant.
Adam!
Yeah, exactly. and that thing, it was in the game for a while, like with the dialogue, depending on how much time you were spending there or not, it was popping several times with different kind of variation in the conversation. Things are going to go much worse and everything. And I was reviewing the build in November 1992, in November 2010, and we were almost beta and everything. And I realized, oh my God, like, it's just smoke and mirror, and we don't carry it through. Like, there's no real consequences.
There's no real consequence, yeah, exactly.
And it's a game about that, and I was, oh my God.
I think that's one of the best things in the game, really.
Yeah, we're missing the point.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I come back in the office, and I go to David and Fussy, our producer, and say, man, we did a huge mistake, and now we're going in our first instance with the journalists, and we're totally fucked, basically. We need to have a real consequence to that thing, and said we need to re-record lines with.
And we basically need to kill the hostages
we
if
need
you don't
to kill
get
the
there in time.
hostages, exactly. We need to re-record lines, new lines for police officers, for David Sarifs, for Adam Jensen, for all those beautiful people. And he approved it, and I was so happy because, like, and then it was the quest for...
Yeah, and what was crazy about it was, first of all, we were so close to, like, almost having to ship the game that we'd released a lot of our actors. We'd already done all the recording, and Seraph himself, so we had to go through and we had to kind of indicate which actors would have to be brought back, how many lines they'd have, and then we had to find Steve Schellen.
Yeah, we found him somewhere on the... somewhere on a beach in Morocco doing something.
He was on vacation.
Someone.
He was on vacation.
Yeah, he was.
He'd been
was
wrapped.
Out there. Yeah, well, he was done. And I mean, you know, anybody who knows Steve Schellen, very talented actor, but very much a free spirit.
How long it took you to get to him? To trace him back?
It wasn't that bad, actually, because I think he did leave information with his agent saying if anybody needs me. And so it was actually quite surprisingly quick, but then it was just the logistics of like, okay, I got to find a studio in Morocco that this guy can go to, and you know, I have no way of specking out what their facility's like, what's it going to sound like, But somehow, you know, through the magic of technology and that, we had our voice director here, we had Mary here, and we hooked up via Source Connect, which is a software that allows you to link up in real time and listen in the studio session. So we were able to do it that way. And I guess he showed up in Bermuda shorts with coconuts in hand, and he did it, and we got through it.
Yeah,
we
and
did.
it was just a few days before the deadline, and Steve came to me. He's like, "Well, hopefully it's going to work, and the sound,
quality,
the quality is going to be there. Otherwise, we might not be able to use it." And we were super stressed. Well, it was a fun ride.
Yeah,
well,
and it worked out because that's the first thing everyone comments when they started playing the game was, "Oh my God, I the hostages are dead already.
Yeah.
I didn't know that would happen."
Yeah, it's one of the few games that really tell you something. And
Well,
Yeah.
it teaches
do
you
it.
early on that there's going to be
There's going to be
consequences to how you play.
and that
which
really
is important.
encapsulates what a Deus Ex game
Yes.
is all about. It's this thing that you don't even know that is really happening or whatever, depending on what you do. And some people would arrive there and see them dead, and they didn't pay attention to what David was saying, and they wouldn't know why, and that's what it's all about. Really.
And it almost didn't happen.
Hey, Jensen. The boss said you were on your way. You're gonna love Hangsha.
You've been there?
Used to live there.
I thought I was. How long?
So this is pretty soon we'll see one of my favorite parts of the game, visually speaking. This is the matte painting that was done by Metazart, a company here in Montreal, and we needed this really impressive vista of a Hangsha, seeing the upper Hangsha and the lower Hangsha, and it should appear just about now. There we go. So really stoked about it. I think it came out really good. This whole idea of a double-decker city, and yeah, it's kind of sci-fi and incredible at the same time.
Yeah, it really shows it off. And what I remember about this actual cutscene was that we produced for this cutscene for the game, but we then did a different version for the E3 demo because the story changed. But we used the exact same visuals, so we had to rewrite the dialogue and fit it into the time frame that we had to make sure that it was exactly going to work, even though it was all different.
So this is the fabled Angsha map. This is one of our main landmarks of the game, if we can say in terms of city hubs and level design. So the whole idea
It was originally going to be Shanghai, wasn't it?
it was originally totally Mary, it was supposed to be Shanghai. We're going to downtown Shanghai, but then we saw this documentary, or more like a mockumentary about putting a second floor over Hong Kong, and we said, hey, that would be pretty good to actually have a map like that. But the thing is that in Hong Kong, there's actually a real reason why they would have a second floor, is that there's no more room for Hong Kong to grow. There's the ocean in the front, and there's the mountains in the back blocking everything, like any type of expansion. And this logic doesn't work with Shanghai.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to keep it. We needed logic. We needed a reason. So we started looking around on Google Earth, and we saw these little islands, one called Hangsha, and we said, hey, what if this kind of became the mecca of cybernetics, and then they ran out of space because very soon they just built and rapidly they ran out of space, and they asked the Chinese government if they could get the other islands around it, right? And then you came up with the idea that the government didn't want to for monopoly reasons and blah blah blah, and they said, hey, you know what, we got tons of money, we can do pretty much what we want, so we'll build a second floor, and that's where the whole idea of the Pangu, or the Fluff, which stands for...
Well, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
You'll know later. Yeah. Because that's a bit the story of
And-
the city has 2 floors. Really.
And also, one of the things that we wanted is that even though we're trying to anticipate what the world is going to be in 20 years from now, we still wanted to have those kind of more over-the-top
Yes.
locations where it awakes your sense of wonder a little bit beyond.
And it's beyond
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
probably going to be
Yeah.
possible in 20 years from now.
Yeah.
You're referring to the species, sir. Do you know how to... would like to hear more of my exclusive interview. It doesn't happen often, folks, but in here.
Access granted.
Our best chance at doing this is to modify ocean temperatures through a combination of iron sealing and geothermal.
rolling.
So here, Antoine, we see a building which is the munition factory for one of our weapons brand in the game, right?
Yeah, I think it's Steiner Bisley's factory.
And this ties in really well with a lot of efforts that we put in the game for all the company names and all the logos and all the brands and stuff like that, because it's a modern game. It's also cyberpunk and stuff like that. And when we started designing this game, we told ourselves, it would make the game so much more credible. You just look around you. I'm asking you people right now listening to this, just look around you, and you could see dozens, even hundreds of stickers and brands and logos and stuff like that just in your living room or whatnot. And I wanted to reproduce this.
We really wanted to anchor it into reality.
Exactly.
Make it believable.
And even if you don't notice them, I'm sure your subconscious does, because we're bombarded with these things, right?
Absolutely.
Continuously.
Like
And so this is cool because you've been playing with these weapons the entire game that have that brand, Steiner Bisley, and now you're in front of the
building that makes it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually went into a lot of details for the weapons and some items as well, like the different kind of manufacturing techniques, like different countries making different kind of things. If you look at the Americans, they do something different ways, and the Germans and the Japanese.
We had two sides for the guns, right? You named them. What was the names for the?
I'm a Russia actually, and Germasian. Thing. It was like Germanic and Asian looking, like very slick, very high polish, like the Germans' weapons or the Japanese cars and stuff. And then you get the American was more stampy and quick manufacturers for lots of people. So the feelings of the textures, well, you'd probably know better about the shaders, but the actual feel of the weapons and some of the items reflect that as well.
And actually, like, this philosophy has been built before designing the guns, so we would inform the designers on how to. To
it's something that Antoine put together even before we got into the actual visual design.
Actually influenced the names a lot as well. I think one of the names like more American brands, like very Texan stuff, and then you get the more European.
Like Steiner Bisley.
Exactly, it's
sounds more European.
Yeah, exactly.
So Antoine, you were the mastermind behind it.
No mastermind, it's just an idea.
And
so humble.
So humble. A funny thing as well, there's 100 brands in the game, literally, and the brands were all, in terms of the names, were invented and created by one of our writers, James Swallow, a good buddy of ours. And
who's
English, which is why
it's not his fault.
It's not.
He's just born that way.
We can't blame him for that. And also, the logos themselves were all made by this genial graphic designer that we had at the time. His name is Timothée Lepetit. And amazingly, he left on the weekend, and he designed every single the 100 logos, 100 brands. With different ways of having the logo as well for each brand.
More than one.
More than one logos for it. It was just insane.
They were all good looking.
And they were all good. I think we had like one or two that we changed, and that's about it. So crazy work.
I'm not sure if you've discovered this yet as you've been playing this game, but Human Revolution is full of Easter eggs. There are thousands of Easter eggs within this. And one of the Easter eggs that I was particularly fond of, that I didn't know about...
Access granted.
I'm not sure if you've discovered this yet as you've been playing this game, but Human Revolution is full of Easter eggs. There are thousands of Easter eggs within this. And one of the Easter eggs that I was particularly fond of, that I didn't know about, but was told by the artist, is that the level designers and level artists for Hengsha actually thought it would be really, really cool to put the codes for the storage units in plain sight. And you see next to the storage units. So as you're going through and you see all these storage units, all these garage doors, and if you look at the wall next to them, there are numbers all over the place. And the ones that are underlined inevitably end up opening up the storage units. So that I thought was a really cool Easter egg.
I worked so hard to find these bloody codes. They're
just there.
They're just there.
Well,
I didn't know about this.
I don't think a lot of people on the team knew.
One of the interesting things about that little Easter egg is that it gave a secondary way to give a code that was not a pocket secretary, which...
True.
As designers, we kind of had gotten fed up with pocket secretaries.
And as writers who had to write them, so did we.
Yeah. So exactly, we were a little fed up of people accidentally forgetting their codes and leaving them in pocket secretaries to be found. So this was a fun way to do it.
Smart little bastards.
Access granted. Access granted.
it's one of our main tools when we design games with this team is called the blueprint, and this is when we almost lay out every single detail of how the game is going to work, how it's going to proceed, and what's going to be in it. And we knew at that point when we designed it that it would be some kind of hotel, right? That where Harry Van Bruggen would be stashed in, and that Adam would have to go find him there. And during one of those blueprint sessions, that's when we had the idea. We got inspired by the Japanese capsule hotels and said, hey, what about if there's almost like a little sub-society of these things?
A village.
Literally a mini village of these things, like this huge hall, right? Like almost like underground hall with like hundreds of these things stacked up, and people literally live there. They're like almost low rent apartments, and the place becomes its own little ecosystem with shops and where people are playing cards and drinking and stuff like that, and that's where it all kind of gelled together.
And I think we alluded to the fact that it belongs to Tong Siong as well.
Oh, yeah?
No, I'm not sure. I can't remember now if he owns it or if he just
tries.
Yeah, he's got major connections to it. Yeah, and I think
who would want to buy
he's
that?
He's stashed many a person in that hotel before. So yeah.
It's time that we as a species stepped up to make it. My visit to Prague was related exclusively to the project which has consumed all of my attention. And it's time that we as a species stepped up and became our best chance of doing this through a combination of ion seeding and geothermal management.
Forgive me, Mr. Darrow. When will we be able to see the truth for ourselves?
As soon as the information.
Access granted. Access granted.
So here in Angsha, like a lot of people are talking in Mandarin and everything, and that was one of the things I wanted on the project. So since we were to travel around the world, I wanted the players to be able to feel the real place, like if they were
like
there,
they were really traveling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you go in a foreign country and you don't understand the language, you feel that you're a stranger, and that's the kind of feel I wanted to have.
And it made it an interesting challenge for us from the writing side because, of course, we had to a couple of challenges. First, we would always, of course, write in English, and then we had to kind of decide which parts would be in Mandarin and which would not, because you didn't want to. If the player was playing without subtitles on, because all the subtitles would be in the English, but if they weren't playing with subtitles, we still have important story information, important gameplay information that has to be communicated, and we have to do that, which is why you'll have a lot of the conversations as you're going through it. You'll see that there's an English person speaking to a Mandarin speaker, and that is going on in the game.
At some point too, Antoine, we had an augmentation, right?
Yeah, it's true. We had a long discussion about using an augmentation to actually actively translate Mandarin, or any language for that matter, that would be visiting. I think we cut it because it was
well, it got so big because all the signs would be in Mandarin, and do we now suddenly look at signs and we see the signs in English? And
just that would have been
that would have been awesome.
It would have been awesome.
With the augmented reality and all that.
Really, really hard.
Yeah.
Could have translated a translation into another language, and the subtitles translated from the.
And as it was, we had to get most of those translations done so quickly that we were having our receptionist translate all the dialogues, and I think we had artists who were actually doing all the signs.
Yeah, one of my concept artists, Deng Lu Yu, who's Chinese, did a lot of the translation, a lot of the Chinese signs, and all that.
Imagine all the mess of Q&A this thing as well, translating.
So, yeah. And I hope for Chinese people that we did an okay job.
An okay job.
You want... You make me poor.
Stay away!
Access granted.
Stop right there.
Jensen, you lost or something? Didn't think it would take this long to check out one apartment.
I took a detour. Tell me something, Malik. You think a smart card with a Tai Young Medical logo on it will come in handy in this town?
TYM.
Please don't. Just get away.
Access granted.
here we have a few good examples of the stores in Lower Hangsha. This was really important to us, the credibility of these stores and all the
in Detroit.
Like in Detroit is true. But they're very different because we're in Hangsha, and you know the ways the products are displayed, and it's a lot more cluttered and everything. And what was interesting is they were actually made by Chinese people, because we actually outsourced their design in terms of concept art and also their production in terms of modeling and textures and whatnot. So I think they came out quite credible. And another interesting little bit of fact is that the level of detail and credibility that I wanted was inspired by
Dead Rising.
Dead Rising is what I said, that mall zombie game, because the stores in that game, like obviously
It's
the whole
crazy.
game is a mall, right?
Yeah.
It's just insane. All the little products, the packaging, the placement of
They nailed
where
it.
they totally nailed it, and so that's what it was. But I think it came out really good. And Hubert, the level designer who took care of bridging, the level artist, sorry, who took care of bridging with the Chinese designing them and building them up, and with where they would fit in the map and the memory constraints, I have no idea how he did it, because there's like 6 or 7 different stores with so many different textures and products and stuff, and it just worked out quite well.
Also, pro tip, check the back of each store. There should be some loot.
Really? I didn't know. I was always busy looking at the products.
So here we look at the signage for the Angsha map, and now we're with Steven Chiola, which he was one of the level designers on the Angsha map, and also with Antoine Tisdale, which was a game designer also on the game. The first iterations of the map, we kind of realized that it was really, really, really confusing, and when we saw players going around who were lost, it was kind of a mess.
Yeah, we originally planned so that Hengsha had a different feeling compared to Detroit, and in the end, it worked out, and a lot of players already mentioned and playtesters mentioned that they really enjoyed the feeling of Hengsha, but at the same time, a lot of people were getting lost, including dev team and
that's a bad sign.
people who worked on the map really got lost, including myself, actually. But in the end, we had a lot of little tricks that we used and implemented that helped navigation. One of them is we added the giant billboard signs that you can see all over the place. They weren't there originally, and they were a big problem. Apart from that, we used a lot of lighting, and we reoriented a lot of small sections and
Created the districts.
exactly we actually cut out a lot of content because there was actually too much, and it was just so overwhelming, so we had to cut down on certain places like that. So
But in the end, like, it's one of the maps that is really, really appreciated by the players, and they manage to be able to navigate through it, right? So yeah.
So in the end, it worked.
In the end, it worked, but it was yeah.
I think I'm still lost somewhere in it.
Where are you?
I don't know.
Access granted. Access granted.
Can't run! Come out! Guards, be here. Malik, you might have been right about that trap. Ancient Court Garden is under lockdown by Bell Tower Associates.
Bell Tower? They're the police in Lower Hangshaw, Jensen. They're under contract with the Chinese government. You think the Chinese...
I won't know anything until I get inside that penthouse.
Right now we're into this mission to find the apartment of Van Bruggen and see who this guy is and everything. But one thing that people don't know is that we had to cut the second floor of the city, or if you know, you don't know that those missions that right now you're playing were meant to be in the second part of the city. And as we were going through production issues and we had to cut some material, we had to find ways to see if we could bring those missions back into Lower Hangshaw and not basically avoid breaking the story.
Yeah, because originally we were planning that you would start in the upper and then you'd come down and then you'd have to go back up for another mission and back down, and it was supposed to be this back and forth. But when we decided to get that, we had to reduce in scope, and we ended up having to find places where we could put all those upper missions in the down in the down area.
It was truly heartbreaking of a cut when that happened, and I was working on 2 of the locations that were in the Upper Hangshaw. When they got cut, I was pretty devastated, but in the end, it still all worked out.
Can I say that I was really devastated with you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But in the end, it still worked out because all the missions were still able. We were still able to grab them and bring them down to Lower Hangshaw, and as a player, you had no idea that it was even supposed to go up there.
Yeah.
So
and based on that, I want to point out like the amazing work that you, Mary and Jeff have done, because there's been a lot of cuts on that game, like on any huge game, and it's a very complex story, and it's a story that every bit is quite important to the main, and the way that you guys every time manage to repurpose the locations to accommodate all these cuts, and then have something that was supposed to be in a whole city hub and then bring it into a new city hub that it wasn't supposed to be part of or whatnot is quite amazing. And like Stephen just said, people never noticed it.
It doesn't feel tacked on.
Not at all.
It
Not
actually
at all.
many times.
Access granted.
Get word to Pritchard, Malik. The hacker who's been attacking us goes by the handle Windmill. Real name's Ari Van Bruggen. Bell Tower's been brought in to arrest him.
Arrest or get rid of?
Either way, he found out someone was gunning for him and took off. We need to find him.
There's a nightclub near where I dropped you called the Hive. It's notorious in black market circles. If this Dutchman is running, his first stop will be there.
I'll have a chat with the owner.
Right now we're into this mission to find the apartment of Van Bruggen and see who this guy is and everything. But one thing that people don't know is that we had to cut the second floor of the city, or if you know, you don't know that those missions that right now you're playing were meant to be in the second part of the city. And as we were going through production issues and we had to cut some material, we had to find ways to see if we could bring those missions back into Lower Hengsha and not basically avoid breaking the story.
Yeah, because originally we were planning that you would start in the upper and then you'd come down and then you'd have to go back up for another mission and back down, and it was supposed to be this back and forth. But when we decided to get that, we had to reduce in scope. And we ended up having to find places where we could put all those upper missions in the down area.
It was truly heartbreaking of a cut. When that happened, and I was working on 2 of the locations that were in the Upper Hengsha. When they got cut, I was pretty devastated, but in the end, it still all worked out.
Can I say that I was really devastated with you?
Yes. 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 But in the end, it still worked out because all the missions we were still able to grab them and bring them down to Lower Hengsha, and as a player, you had no idea that it was even supposed to go up there.
Yeah.
So
and based on that, I want to point out like the amazing work that you, Mary and Jeff have done, because there's been a lot of cuts on that game, like on any huge game, and it's a very complex story, and it's a story that every bit is quite important to the main, and the way that you guys every time manage to repurpose the locations to accommodate all these cuts, and then have something that was supposed to be in a whole city hub and then bring it into a new city hub that it wasn't supposed to be part of or whatnot is quite amazing. And like Stephen just said, people never noticed it.
It doesn't feel tacked on.
Not at all.
It
Not
actually,
at all.
many times the cuts actually helped to strengthen the story, and cutting an
the
entire
pacing,
city hub above actually made it easier on the writers.
That was the
'cause
right call.
we didn't have to
Even though it
come
was,
up with tons of content.
Yeah, it was the right call, even though it was a sad call
was
to
sad.
make.
very sad.
Jensen, figured you might want a heads up before you stroll into the Hive. The owner's name is Tong Si Hung, Tong being his last name. Rumor is he's tied to the Triads.
China's organized crime lords. How wonderful. Anyone else want a piece of this pie?
Please don't kill me.
Access granted. Access granted.
Here. Easy. Thank you.
So one of the things we did here was that we had to actually move the hive slightly to the right towards the corner so that you could see it much more easily as you're walking down the street. Reasons for landmarking issues where you'll at least have something you can see in the distance that'll help you from getting lost. And another reason we had actually done it was for the bartender side quest. If you actually solve it in the correct way, I suppose you could say, when he puts up the giant TV screens and shows that the guy is the culprit behind the murder. Well,
actually,
it wasn't the bartender.
With,
it was Farida's. It was Farida's.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I was even more confused, but basically you could see it more clearly there.
Yeah, and
you had a much bigger visibility on that, so it turned out really cool.
And also we had to make the building taller because we have a section on the rooftop, and if players were exploring, you had to see the hive. You remember?
You needed to see the whole thing.
Exactly. So.
And there was also this issue of players jumping off-world.
That's why we made it higher.
As the map grew, everything was getting harder and harder to contain the players in.
We're in front of the bartender, right? It's in the Hive. I think it was one of the places that inspired a lot of fans to make crazy videos with Jensen and the NPCs, like the Punch Punch Revolution,
yeah,
Safety Dance
with the cover system. That's one of the great ones.
I remember this one, the Safety Dance. I was laughing. I was crying.
Because Adam makes this little groove when he goes from left cover to right cover or whatever, and this guy just like, hey, if I just keep on going, it looks like he's dancing. And it just it just goes on for the entire Safety Dance song, which is, by the way, a song from Montreal. It was a Men Without Hats, which was one of the main 80s bands at the time.
And what was the other video like? He goes in front of the bartender and he asks him, what kind of drink do you want? And then he goes in his head and he starts to punch everyone.
Because it's called the Chinese gut punch or something? Is that what it is? I think it's from there. And then
the names of those drinks. You can't imagine Adam Jensen drinking any of those.
Any of those, yeah. And then you see him kill everybody, and then he just gets out of his his daydreaming of killing everybody. And he's like, the Chinese gut punch.
And what's even more fun with those drinks is you should go into the menus and you should look at the item descriptions, because they were written by Mark Chechery and he had so much fun. The things that are in those drinks, you should read the descriptions of these drinks. They're talking about how poisonous they actually really are, and it's quite interesting. So take a look in the menus.
And he was in the AAs at that time, right, Mark? Just kidding. He had a couple of chips on his desk.
All that to say that the fans made us laugh quite a bit.
We love you guys.
Yeah. No, seriously, it's true what Jeff is saying. Now we're talking about a lot of the fan-made stuff in relation to the Hive, but just everything was so unexpected. We had no idea that it would connect that much. So thank you.